6 p.m. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. I am opening the January 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Rutland Conservation Commission. Present in the room are as many as we are going to have. Myself, Peter Crane, Melissa Danza, excuse me, Jared Gentilucci, Skip Clark, and Joe Dell'Aquila. Absent today is Scott Langren. I'm going to hold off on any of our normal agenda because our first item of the evening is a joint meeting with the Select Board. So, welcome. Those of you who can make it, thank you. And Skip is playing double duty here.
I'm trying.
So this is just sort of a meeting to well, first of all, I know, Tom, you haven't met many of us here. Leah has met everyone. I'm trying to remember who has and who hasn't. I mean, Carol, you said you didn't know Joe. That introduction's been made. And Lyndon, I believe you know everybody on the board.
Peter, should we just do intros for everybody, just to?
Yeah.
Because I know it helped me.
It can't hurt,
Yeah.
sure. You start.
I'm happy to start. Jared Gentilucci.
Melissa Danza.
Skip Clark.
Joe Dell'Aquila.
And everybody knows me. I'm Peter Crane.
And how about those people?
Carol Benoit.
Lyndon Nichols.
Tom Galvin.
Gary Kelleher.
And where is she? She's on there.
Leah will be.
You can't see her.
I'm on-
You know.
I'm on Zoom. I'm Leah.
So this is fairly well questions, comments, feedback in both directions. So being the guests, I'll ask if you have questions or comments for us before we give our barrage to you.
Well, I just want to speak, I will speak on behalf of the board. I don't typically speak on behalf of the board, but thank you all for meeting with us. This is part of the Select Board's goals and agendas items for this coming year is to meet with the boards and commissions and others that are out there that serve this town, and we all serve it together, and we're just trying to put names and faces together for one thing, and to kind of try to get some camaraderie going and some dovetailing where it can happen, and so that you know us, and just try to open the lines of communication. And so thank you for allowing us this time on your agenda.
Thanks for coming, everyone. How is it that we don't have guests tonight? Other guests?
Who's that? Who's that?
DCI.
Oh, he's from DCR, that's true. But we've been known to have a number of people in the room.
Did we?
I was like, yeah, I know. Don't
So-
make it seem like we're so prestigious.
So thank you.
Nice.
Anything else from the Select Board side? Please.
Is it on camera?
We'll make sure you are. You can see yourself there in the corner.
There you are.
Oh, there you go. No, thank you for seeing us, meeting with us. Actually, you are the first board and/or commission that we've met with. We've talked about doing this for quite a while, so we appreciate the opportunity. I know all of you folks, and I know what you do and how you do it and how you get it done. So I guess the main reason for us to meet with all boards and commissions in town is to make sure that we're all on the same page with everything. Just nobody's out to point fingers and say nobody's doing a good job. It's just a matter of, like Carol said, it's communication, transparency, to collaborate on everything we can, and for you folks to know, as well as for this board and myself to know, that if we do have questions or issues, we can certainly approach you and ask that question and find out what's going on, and we want you to know that you can do the same with us. I've been here for
Too many years.
a little bit of a break, but a long time. Appreciate working with you all, as I do everyone in town. The board's been great, you guys have been great. Boards and commissions, we all seem to have an open line of communication. Tamika's the mainstay here, so she tells me what you say. I get messages from most of you here and there. The only one I really don't appreciate is when somebody starts a message off with ugh. But we had a meeting today,
That's
Peter,
me,
about.
yes.
Yeah, that's you. A good meeting today, productive meeting. I think we answered each other's questions. Just want to move forward with you folks, as we have been, and with others, so that's all. What's your name again? Joe.
Actually, I got a question. If you could just give me a brief idea of what it is you do.
Our primary responsibility is enforcing the state's Wetlands Protection Act. And that means that whenever someone does work, especially work that involves movement of earth, because that's the disturbance that causes so much else to occur, within a wetland or something near it, or a river or a pond, the act, the Wetlands Protection Act lays out all of those things that we protect. Any work that happens in or near those, sufficiently near them, needs to come before us for approval. And we issue, most people call it, for most groups, they're called permits. Ours are called orders of conditions, which is to say, these are the things that you need to do, the steps you need to take in your project in order to ensure that we don't harm the wetlands, we don't interfere with wildlife migratory patterns, we don't, that basically the environment is left in as good a condition as we can make it before you even start. That's a really high level. Melissa, care to fill in some more?
I mean, yeah, we're primarily a permitting board promulgating the Wetlands Protection Act. So there's wetland jurisdictional areas called resource areas, and our jurisdiction extends typically 100 feet from the edge of those wetlands. For perennial streams, aka they run year round or they have a big enough watershed, then it's 200 feet. And that 200 feet is regulated a little bit more heavily because it's kind of a resource area in itself, so it's kind of like it is a wetland. But otherwise, for commercial projects, we also make sure that it conforms to the stormwater standards from DEP's policies, and we're working on the open space and rec plan. Jared is open space committee. We're getting there, slowly but surely.
I was going to ask for a status for that, but I forgot to ask for it. But we'll talk about that at the next meeting.
I want to talk about it.
Hmm?
I want to talk about it. Yeah, I think
You don't know
primarily
about it?
permitting
Okay.
board. I think that's the best.
One thing I'd like to add to
Yeah.
that is Rutland is a unique situation as well. Rutland is the headwaters to 3 different watersheds, which effectively protects about 50% of the land in Rutland from any development or disturbance. It also gives the conservation the pleasure of working with DCR and DEP much more than other conservations in other towns, because this is considered a very sensitive area from a watershed standpoint. Some state entities are easier to work with than others. We've had numerous examples in town where we get state involved and it just doesn't necessarily go all that well. But just so you know, the town is a special case. In fact, I don't think there's another town in the whole state that enjoys the protections that Rutland does.
And not only are there wetlands to be protected, 52% of the town is owned by the state or federal governments. So 52% of the land we can never collect taxes from. And it's often been said around these parts that the easy land has been built out here, which means that the Conservation Commission is involved in many of the building projects in town, just because because of all the wetlands in town. Now is an important thing that it would be good for you and the public to understand, and that just because you see water doesn't make it a wetland. A wetland is defined by specific plants that exist, or even better than that, taking soil samples to determine whether or not it's hydric soils. So water doesn't make a wetland is a very important rule. The other thing, Joe hit on another word that's very important but is not jurisdictional of the Conservation Commission, watershed. Conservation doesn't deal with watershed, water supply, none of that. That's all under DCR control. It's not under our jurisdiction to control it or to manage it. We are aware of the regulations. We point out to applicants where there's some overlap. When you're near a river that feeds a drinking water supply, the protections are different than if it's just one of our, than if it's just a wetland stream, tributary. And so we have to be aware of where the regulatory overlaps and disjointness are so that we can help guide, in some conditions, the developer where they need to be careful and things that they may not be aware of. Some of the scientists we deal with all the time understand this, and some of the 1-2 time builders don't have any idea about it, and they learn a lot in the process.
Or the homeowner.
Yeah, usually the homeowner, right?
So I have a follow-up question to both those. You said 50% about is state and federal,
Mhm.
and you said 50% is under wetland jurisdiction, or something.
Non-wetlands, watershed.
Watershed. Is that the same 50%?
No.
Or are
Yeah.
we talking
Well,
about
basically it is.
50% of the remaining 50%?
There,
Well, there
It
A
overlaps.
is some division.
a
there.
lot of the state-owned land is bought because of watershed protection. So, and City of Worcester owns some, as I think about it, along with the DCR and the feds. There is some alignment, but it's not exactly the same, because you see watershed protection interacting with our applications very frequently, and that's why my initial reaction was, no, they're not exactly the same.
If you looked at it from purely a percentage standpoint, the percentage of protected lands is somewhat better than 60%. That 10% being areas that we may have jurisdiction over, but the DCR does not necessarily, or vice versa. So there are some separations there, and you generally don't discover that until you're in the middle of it.
Now, is that remaining open space or developable land, or is that overall?
It's not anything to do with open space on our account.
Well, I probably used it wrong, because open space is an actual term. So if you're talking then maybe 60% of 100%, is that 40% already developed, or is it?
No,
No, it's
Oh,
just
no.
So that's
outside of
still
those
to be-
buffer zones.
Okay.
no.
So I just wonder, as then
we're
as a
far from
citizen,
developed.
how close are we to being maxed?
Well,
There's a build-out study.
yeah, there are a couple of build-out studies. There's one, the last edition of the Open Space and Recreation Plan answers exactly that question and makes assumptions for the density building and for, therefore, how many more lots.
We just went over that in the master plan too.
Oh, great.
So I think Dave George might have the, what's it called? The CMRPC put together, the analysis that has, I think in the last 5 years, it has the number of buildable units, acreage, what's the other one? I think it breaks it down between like different subdivision designs as well. If you did open space versus traditional.
It's Leah. I'm walking in right now, but I think the managed growth work does that build out. I think also a lot of that build out has already been met at not, years ahead of when it was expected to be met. I'll be right in.
Right, well, I have yet to see 2 studies of any sort show exactly the same numbers, and it's all based on assumptions. How densely do you think someone will develop, and it's going to be, is it a developer who's trying to build a subdivision versus a homeowner who's just dividing her lot into 2 or 3 versus, there's so much that's just assumption based into how you build the model for what you think it is. And then also of importance to this commission is how many are well and septic, and how many are town water and sewer, and how many, in my belief, the worst case, actually mix the two, where somebody does a well, but they use town sewer, so they're taking water out of the ground and there's no way to replenish it.
Which should be a no-no.
We've seen a lot of E1s, not in the last couple of years, fewer in the last couple of years, but over time, we've seen a lot of take water out of the ground but don't replenish it with the septic. So,
To that end, Peter, if I may,
Yes.
I know we did have a lot of E1s in town, but are some of them becoming eliminated and eventually tying into a gravity or force sewer main?
all the ones that I know tie into, all the ones I can think of, they were all single properties, they weren't subdivisions, and they all got tied into the town sewer system. So they all went into, whether or not they turned into force, I mean, at some point, everything,
Well,
the
but
sewer turns into a
some
force
of the newer
main.
pump stations in town, I know,
Right.
once the pump stations became online or active, some of the E1s were able to be eliminated. so-
yeah, I have not heard of them doing that, but I don't know that I would
Not a
have.
lot that I know of,
Okay,
because some of the E1s were based on topology more than anything else.
okay. And if I also may, another question, not to do with the E1s, but when you put your OOC together, I know we've, in the past, have done many site visits together, but do you have an individual in particular that acts as an agent? And I know this is something that you and I have discussed, because there is a possibility, or a opportunity, I should say, to share an agent with another community. And I know you're gonna talk about that at a later time, but, so my question is, does the whole panel go out together, or does one person go out, decide what should be in the OOC and report back to the panel?
The order, we actually have a very broad set of what I would call standard conditions. 52, 53? 50, we have 53 conditions that are,
43.
what's that?
43.
My mistake. 43 that we have on every single permit that we issue. That are, and they're almost boilerplate, they're very standard, it's nothing particularly unusual about them. And then for many properties, we collectively decide if there need to be special conditions. If there, when, this has happened a lot recently, when the house building is very, very close to the wetland and they're well within the buffer zone, we insist that as one of our orders is that they have markers to delineate, not to delineate necessarily the edge of the wetland, but to demarcate so that people know. Sometimes it's with signs, sometimes it's with large boulders to discourage people from going in further, and certainly from developing further in. Visits, so to get back to your core question, whoever can make the visit, we schedule a visit, we post it as a meeting, and whoever shows up, we see what we see. At the next meeting, we formally discuss it as a complete group, and based upon the plans that are done and the conditions that we notice, that's when we decide if any special conditions apply.
And on your staff, is there an LSP, or do we go outside? There's no LSP? Okay.
No, we would always have to hire one if we needed one.
Okay, all right. And they take care of your delineation, wetland flagging, so on and so forth?
No,
Well, as a rule, the delineation is done by someone hired directly by the applicant, because they need to come with a plan delineated and wetland map flags already placed for us to examine, to decide. That's part of our going out to the site visit, is looking at how they delineated the wetlands and saying, oh, this is nice and conservative, oh, this is very tight, that might be too far in.
But for bigger projects like subdivisions, that would be something that would get a third-party
Yes.
peer reviewer to come out and do the wetland delineation, and also the engineering calcs as well.
at the owner
At the-
of the
yeah.
property's
Yes.
expense.
All right, okay. So you rely a lot also on the GIS information as far as actually location of wetlands and so on and so forth?
With the absence of other information, we rely on that. Building permits, for example, I approve as the chair, I approve every building permit that comes before Concom. And I use GIS unless we've already looked at the site. If frequently, the builder will go through the wetlands permitting process before going for the building permit. The onesie-twosie homeowner doesn't, and so I have to use the GIS information to say, these wetlands are too close, you need to come before us and we need to have a discussion, or we need to actually go through an NOI. Sometimes I've said that. It depends on how close the wetlands are.
There used to be a time way back when, in order for commissioners to vote on a given parcel or order of conditions for a given parcel, that they would have had to have participated personally in the site visit and every aspect associated with that particular, like every meeting that you had on it. If you missed a meeting, you couldn't participate. The state loosened that law up in recent years because of the inability of conservation commissions to ensure that everybody on the commission could get out, right? And nobody got sick and everybody was at all the meetings and everything. And the state recognized that it was kind of too high of a hurdle. And they relaxed that a little bit so that they allowed discussion amongst commissioners now as to the conditions that we've seen. You know, if somebody didn't make the sidewalk, we're allowed now to share what we've seen with the other commissioners, and they then are allowed to vote based on the common knowledge rather than their personal knowledge. So that's been a change in how commissions work in recent years.
Does DCR or City of Worcester take any part in these site visits, or do they just go?
DCR
your
will.
feedback?
City of Worcester not so much. I think the city depends on. I know they involved Paxton quite a bit when they were doing all that work down there on 56, but for the most part, Worcester's involvement with us has been minimal. Of course, they don't own that much up here. You know, what they've got is relatively minor. Mostly everything up here is DCR owned, so it's, you deal with them, and they're pretty good. They're real reasonable folks.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from you to us now? We've asked you a lot. I could ask you questions all night long.
Go ahead.
Why are you looking at me?
Because
What do
you
you
were
want me to
there.
do? All right.
You
Should I
took the
do a
seat
brief
next to me.
overview of what we've been discussing at least?
Sure.
First? Okay. So, things that we've been working on. We have been slowly eating away at the wetlands bylaw. I think we've had a lot of discussion in trying to pick out the fundamentals that we want to have within that bylaw that makes it a little bit more strict. You know, whether it's having like a no-touch, so we have a 20-foot no-touch policy right now, so it's not a bylaw, so we can't actually enforce it. We can just request that homeowners and property owners or developers adhere to it. So if we put that kind of in a bylaw, then we have enforcement action to say, nope, you cannot go within the first 20 feet alteration, you know, unless it's already been altered or whatnot. There are waivers allowed for that, obviously in certain circumstances, but other than that, we met with the town of Paxton, about conservation agent, in discussion about a shared position, part-time. It would be 19 hours a week, maybe. Paxton
That's not what
currently.
I'm budgeting this year.
Okay, Paxton currently has, I think it's 19 hours a month, I think they said.
I think
So
they
it'd be
said
like
that.
4 hours a week. So it'd be, if it was a 19-hour position, then it'd be 15 in Rutland, 4 in Paxton. And that's an interesting opportunity, I think, because both are small communities. Both have very similar natural resources, I think, in layout of towns and kind of sites. So it would be nice to have that little bit of connectivity, but I think otherwise, we're just trying to get, I think, on top of the backlog. We have a lot of files, hard copies that are just in boxes that we have been trying, at least I started pre-COVID, going through with Peter all of the past decisions and applications that we've had, because we don't have a master spreadsheet of every application. So what I'm used to is I'm an agent in another town, so I have kind of every order of condition, every request of determination of applicability, violation, etc. in this master spreadsheet, so I can search by address, applicant, etc. So that's the goal, to start getting that up to snuff. So we have kind of the fundamentals of it. We've been keeping it updated. I think the biggest hurdle has been a lot of them were labeled as lot numbers and not actual house numbers. So it's going back and trying to tie it to the original plans to figure out, do these even exist and what's their actual number? That makes it a lot easier for building permits in the future, because it might be something that when you do get a building permit application, if it's a little iffy, maybe it might be close, it might be not. What I usually do, it's very easy just to go in the spreadsheet, search for the address, and if there's something there, then, you know, more often than not, then they need to file something. So that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles that I think we still need to get over, just the backlog. A lot of our permits, the order of conditions also get a closeout at the end, which hasn't, I guess, always been best practice
Doesn't
followed.
regularly happen.
Yeah. So I think Tamika's been doing a really good job in kind of setting up the flow of start to finish. So once we, you know, get an application, but also once it's issued, we came up with kind of some blanket statements and reminders of, you need to get your permit recorded, you need to get your erosion controls installed, we need to inspect them, DEP sign, etc. But having kind of that backlog and the electronic files, plans, orders of conditions, certificates of compliances, it would be the best, I think, that we're trying to get completed. Sometimes it just takes time that I don't think we have too much of, but it's still on our bucket list. I think it's high priority. Tamika's gotten the OneDrive, SharePoint.
Go back to SharePoint.
SharePoint, and they're all the same. They all lead to the same place. So she started to slowly start to compile at least what we have since she started, and then we're working our way backwards.
Tamika's been here for the transition from everything in paper to virtually everything electronic, and
she used to carry her little box around.
that's right. And so Tamika's organizational skills are helping us tremendously, I'll say. Along with, actually, if I can just do a little Tamika spiel, I have said for a very long time she has acted as much more than just an administrator for us. She has in fact she has done a number of the things that a conservation agent would normally do. She files all the paperwork with the DEP. She deals with the registry of deeds. She deals with a lot of the noise so that we don't have to. Now we'll see how things change once we get an agent, assuming that actually happens, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Was there another point besides?
You Tamika's spiel.
Yeah, it's all. Tamika's better than we could have ever hoped for, right? More than we could ever have expected. About the agent, so we've sort of talked a little bit about it. So now more specifically, we are looking at a part-time agent. I believe I budgeted 10 hours a week this fiscal, and that would be in addition to Paxton's 4 to 5 hours a week. So that keeps this person, assuming that we do get an INA signed, below the 18, 19 hours a week where benefits become an issue. But it is our intent to pursue that. We will be coming up with a job description in the very near future. FinCom is going to see my request for funds from the general fund to pay this person. We'll have those discussions as we go through all the budgeting. Is there anything more to say about?
I think it's also important to note that some towns, and I think what we do currently is we pay Tamika out of our Wetlands Protection Act fund,
Right.
which is all of our application fees that we receive. We can only utilize those funds for promulgating the Wetlands Protection Act, and that includes paying staff. The downside of that is that if we get less applications, then we get less money. And for me, I'm very I think, strongholded on the fact that any staff that we have should be paid out of the general fund. It's just not sustainable, I think, long-term, and there are many other items that we could be using with Wetland Protection Act funds. There are conservation properties that we haven't done anything with. There's conservation restrictions, and those are kind of some of the aspects that we could kind of focus more on if we have that availability.
We, with our limited time, have not done monitoring of sites that are under construction. We've not done monitoring of any of the conservation land in town, which we are supposed to do. We're supposed to make sure that somebody hasn't encroached or isn't dumping or isn't, we haven't done any of it. And there's enough of that land in town that we believe that there's quite enough work for a conservation agent to do.
May I suggest that you put together a SWOT analysis for this position?
What?
A SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, threats. So why you need to sell this to FinCom, to the select board. What are some of your risk areas for not having this person? Also, how many hours is Tamika putting in every week to support the number of hours that you're requesting? So that would come off of Tamika's plate. But at what risk are we operating in this town without a conservation agent? What are the threats to us for those risks? Where are we weak because of that? How can we be stronger because of having this agent? So opportunities to improve. That's strength, weaknesses,
Is there a
opportunities.
template for that somewhere?
You can look it up. SWOT is strength,
Okay.
weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. People usually do it for their own jobs and their goals and things like that, but I think that it would be a good use, because you're going to have to, it's a brand new position, because you're going to have to.
I think that's a good idea, especially with the threats that, what are we lacking now,
Mhm.
which is a lot of just eyes on the ground.
And what trouble are we going to get into if it keeps getting kicked down the road?
So what is Paxton doing now, and why do they only need 4 hours?
They have a lot less building going on than we do.
So their previous admin, or agent, left. She went actually to the central region, Mass DEP, so they just have had a vacant position for a little while. They didn't get any interest, so they tried to see if they could join in with us, at least, because it's only 19 hours a month. I think people just aren't that interested, because it's not that much. If it's 4 hours a week, you're not
Unless
getting
they
that much money.
lived right
Unless they lived
here,
right there.
they'd have to travel. It becomes untenable as a
So
job.
I think they're just hoping it's a little bit more appealing if it's a 19-hour or, more than 4 hours a week. That's really
And they have quite a bit of protected land as well, don't they?
I don't
They
know
have-
what their numbers are. It
They
wouldn't
have
surprise
some.
me, but I haven't looked.
They don't have any, on percentage basis, they're not even close to us.
I think they just have more. State Park is the biggest.
Mhm.
Once you
Sounds
get
okay.
beyond the watershed line, going over Pleasantdale Road on that side of town, going towards Spencer,
Mm-hmm.
watershed drops off to nothing. Like, Spencer, there's no watershed in Spencer.
Right.
But, Paxton's,
Oh, they can't.
kind of sharing that same geological or situations that we don't share.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Would a conservation agent, and I'm not even sure if this falls to Concom or not, but in doing some of the open space and recreation stuff, I noticed a lot of other surrounding communities map threatened species, specifically the spotted salamander, but some other threatened or endangered species. And I know that Rutland doesn't, like where vernal pools are, where the the high impact resources are and everything. Is that specifically a Concom thing? Is that an
That's
open?
state.
Is it state?
Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And-
they have it mapped. And so if there's nothing in Rutland, it's because there's nothing in Rutland. And so it's based off citizen science. So I think it's 30 years that they'll stay on the docket. So if someone doesn't report anything for, that long, then it falls off the map. So it's really dependent on people submitting their observations.
So that's outside of Concom's. I mean, like
So like what I do is I go out in the town that I work for. I do go out in the spring and look for vernal pools. You know, because that's just part of what the commission's kind of overall goals are. But that's a full-time job too. So I think it depends on just the time availability, but it could be.
So I guess maybe it's like an education piece also to our residents that's an opportunity to be engaged in the natural heritage side of things, a self-advocacy piece, because I wasn't sure how it worked and I didn't want to put more on your plate, but also not sure where it falls. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Talking about an open space. We'll get there.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I think it's the education part. I think
Yeah.
that could fall under Concom and any initiatives we want to take.
Well, I don't want it to solely be, I mean, it's fine for Concom, but I don't want it to be solely, I think part of this meeting is so that we can understand how we can also provide education or outreach or assist you in what you need to get where you're headed. Me personally, I'm psyched to hear that the wetlands bylaw is being moved forward. To kind of Joe and Peter's point, as far as most of buildable Rutland is wetter now than what was buildable, the buildable lots 30 years ago. I think that it's an important piece to have that coupled with an agent, just because we have so much potential resources.
If I can ask, what do you think we get out of a bylaw?
I think the big piece is the enforcement piece, and just having some of the teeth in the fact that this is a bylaw versus policy, and not as a land grab or anything, but to really look at it from this is to Joe's point that Rutland is quite unique. The topography and the natural resources and everything, to have some teeth behind that and really look at it from a Rutland specific rather than what works for the whole state, but Rutland is 60% wet or watershed or both. So to kind of look at it from a Rutland specific lens is where I'm coming from.
Right.
So a question to follow up on that, and you talk about a bylaw in one of our a little weakness in Rutland, maybe it's a bigger weakness that I want to admit here, but is enforcement. Is that an agent's job?
It's part of it.
So that's
yeah,
a big
it's a big one.
it's a big one. If
I
you're
mean,
gonna
and
get
I think
that.
a lot for us is just, like I said, the eyes on the ground. It's the daily, someone at the sites once a week, checking erosion controls, checking slopes, just to make sure that things are kind of hunky-dory. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, they should be following their proper site best management practices. And if we can catch it earlier rather than later, then it's fixing a silt fence instead of unfilling a wetland. So,
Right.
for
And
sure.
once it's gone, it's gone. Can't get it back.
If I may kind of follow up on the other piece, you had mentioned, I think, Melissa, with the commercial building, stormwater management, and I know that that's a never-ending and all-encumbering piece of legislation that just keeps giving. So is that a Concom specific thing? Is that, I know Joe from DPW had been kind of working a little bit. Is it, how does Concom see that, I guess?
It depends on the town. So some towns, their stormwater and erosion control bylaw, so it's what the EPA is required for towns to have, that I think we still need to update parts of it. So the whole goal of the stormwater management permit is to kind of go along the same workflow as the EPA's construction general permit. So a lot of towns, they decide which agency or department is kind of promulgating it. So I'm sorry to keep bringing it up where I work.
Yes, you have a perfect town, I know.
I just make it sound like I do so much. I don't. So I am the enforcement for the stormwater bylaw. In other towns, it's planning board. In other towns, it's DPW. So it's usually one of those three or a combination of all. I think some towns have even made a stormwater
Yeah, I was just
committee,
gonna say, some towns have stormwater
which
committees.
I hate personally, because it's just another committee, and typically those projects that would be coming forward for a stormwater management permit are also simultaneously going through planning and Concom typically, usually at least planning. Usually it's disturbance of an acre-ish. The threshold you can kind of determine town by town as well, but that's usually when you start.
I've seen 40,000 square feet.
40,000,
About an acre.
yeah, about an acre.
Just under.
And then that's when that bylaw comes into effect. So it just depends on who wants it.
Now, where things get more complicated as it gets to stormwater, when there's an overlap between the stormwater requirements and wetlands, we're involved. But if there's no wetland involvement in the stormwater side, Concom virtually can't be involved. And I say it's not that we cannot be. We can be, but we can't expend funds. Our funds, all the money that we receive, which is applications, have to go into the Wetlands Protection Act fund, and I'm going to say it a little differently than Melissa did. That money can only be spent on the administration and enforcement of the Wetlands Protection Act. And stormwater outside of a wetland zone does not fall under that. So, were we to hire a conservation agent and pay with the WPA funds, that agent could not do stormwater outside of Concom jurisdiction. It's complicated, which is one of the reasons I'm asking for a general fund account this year to start funding the conservation agents so we don't need to worry about that restriction. Money's complicated everywhere. We just get a few more regs in the money that we receive. Today, I actually have outstanding questions with the accountant once we get a bylaw. I'm pointing to you because you're the one who brought it up at the last meeting, fine. Any of the funds, it is unclear to me where funds that we collect due to our bylaw have to go and what the expenditure rules are. Because our wetlands bylaw is separate from the Wetlands Protection Act. And so how do we need to account for that? Do we account for it just like WPA funds?
Revolving fund, yeah.
It could be a revolving fund. Well, our accountant isn't for that, by the way. I'll say that, though. If the accountant wants us to turn our money over to general fund and that we get general fund allocations or appropriations, that's not even close to done. But we'll figure that out once we get we'll figure out once we know what the law is about funds that we collect that exceed anything from the WPA funds.
I would think that other towns should have similar models for it because there are a lot of other towns that have town-specific or community-specific wetland bylaws in addition to the state ones. But
if they don't, we don't know if it's because they chose not to.
Right, but I'm saying that there should be resources to say how had you addressed this or how do you address this or whatever. Another quick question I had, and this doesn't need to be an answer, but just because it's in my brain, is have you guys reevaluated your fees recently and make sure that they're
We can't.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, that they were set by the state.
They are set entirely by
But
the
if we
state.
have a bylaw, we can
have our own.
have our
Yes.
fees.
Yes.
Right.
And we can collect fees for like certificate of compliances,
Right.
extensions,
Has-
etc.
Has anybody done any like quick analysis to make sure that what the state says you should be collecting is adequately covering expenses, or just I'm thinking
We can't ask for more unless it's a peer review cost. So the
Okay.
application fee is the application fee. If we're doing review and that cost supersedes, then we can ask for that because that's 53G peer review.
right.
But applications, we can't ask for anymore.
But I guess my question is larger from the state level. Are what the state the numbers that the state has set,
Mhm.
are they still adequate for all towns, not specifically Rutland, for what the expenses are? And does there need to be some conversation with
It would
state
have- It would have to be a whole Wetlands Protection Act update.
Yeah.
It's
The
in-
state has raised the rates.
Okay, I guess that's
In the last few years. It's actually now it's about twice what it was about 5 to 6 years ago.
I will say that the funds today cover the Concom costs today, but will not cover the conservation agent. And in fact, I'm not convinced that were we to set up our own fees, we could pay for the conservation agent. At first blush, it's, the numbers don't look good for the amount that we would have to raise through fees. But, and worse than that, as we all know, Melissa said it earlier.
It comes in booms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, this week is like the third
We haven't
third
had
meeting in a
any
row that we
meetings.
haven't had any hearings,
Yeah, we haven't had
which is
any meetings.
very unusual for us lately.
And as a staff person who would be paid out of that fund, they get very nervous.
Yep.
You know, I've been there, it's not fun. When you get that lull and you're like, okay, it's been a couple months without a big application, you know, because a lot of single family homes, it's $67.50 we get, like it's nothing. So, but the big subdivisions, when we count every single structure within the buffer zone is its own separate fee. So when each one is $500, then we get a lot, but when we're just doing septics and it's $67.50, it doesn't really help us at all.
But I think to Carol's point, that SWOT analysis then is really valuable to say that the long-term, the benefits of a consistent staff person are this versus a transient person.
Yeah, the benefit, I agree with you. The benefit you get from conservation agent is not necessarily gonna look very good on a balance sheet. The benefits are kind of the intangibles that exist in the town that you try to preserve, you know.
Right.
I shouldn't say intangibles, but, because you can't see a lot of them, but,
You're not gonna see
It's
the
not-
dollar signs.
yeah, you don't put the dollar sign on the right tree, you know, I mean, it's, or that pond, but, yeah, again, it goes back to what you said earlier about the risk analysis. And I think that's, you know, that's an inherent, well, that's a big part of that risk analysis is of an environmental and quality of life thing more than it is that you can measure in dollars and cents. You know, it's not like a liability, but it is a risk. You know, I mean, it's a risk to your environment. I mean, it's bottom line.
There is another piece of public education, since I'm up here and I have the floor, and that's that philosophically, this Conservation Commission does not act like some others. Some conservation commissions are very, no, you have to prove that what you're doing cannot possibly hurt the wetlands. This commission is much more, it's not that we're interested in building, we don't have any say in it really, but we know that any time that we turn down a project, that we deny a project, the town can get sued. And unless we can stand on solid science why we turned it down, that we will get sued and we'll lose. And we don't want to do that. So our entire philosophic approach is, can this project be done safely? And what are the conditions that we need to place on the project to make sure that it is done safely from the wetlands point of view? Some people think we are pro-builder. That's not true. We are pro-wetlands. But along with being pro-wetlands, we also need to be pragmatic in that building is going to occur, and how much can we impact the benefits to the wetlands, or at least have as little degrading as possible of the wetlands based on projects?
Along with that, part of that same conversation is if we do deny a project, the applicant can appeal it to the DEP. And that never goes well for the town. At least it has never and I've been on this board for a long time, I've never seen it go well for the town when the DEP gets involved. Because they don't live here. They go home at the end of the day, and they don't deal with anybody, their neighbor, knocking on their door and burning their ear off or getting a phone call. All right? They don't deal with that. All right? We do. All right? And I know I've had my ear burnt for hours on end over projects in town. But we're dealing with it here. we have a vested interest because we live here. All right, and when we deny something, the applicant goes to DEP, and chances are the DEP, they've never turned anybody down. Put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know of any that.
They've
I
never
do.
turned one down. They've never.
You found
They
one
have
in
never-
your town, in your very special
They
town.
have never 100% backed us up. All right, and because they're looking at their fees, and DEP is fee funded. So
Now-
you're looking at a conflict there, all right? So I've always been of the opinion, and part of the philosophy that Peter has just espoused was developed, in this room years ago, that it was better to work hand in hand and cooperatively with anybody that's doing a project and guide the project, all right, than it was to get into an adversarial relationship with that person, all right, and then have them fight you tooth and nail, and then run to DEP, and DEP says, no, they can do that. All right, so it's always been try to work with them, all right, and protect the wetlands at the same time. And that, I'll tell you, in my experience, and I was chairman on this board for a long time, worked out better for us than when we got into the adversarial things, which were unavoidable. There was some of them were unavoidable. Because DEP doesn't live here. They don't care what's going on in Rutland. They really don't. Right? Just like they didn't care about what was going on in Westminster, although that was a project that they were supposed to be monitoring. All right, and they've got a major mess over there now. All right, and I keep my fingers crossed that we don't have the same thing here. All right, so from that standpoint, that philosophy that Peter just talked about has been developed over a period of years. Most of the folks that we deal with in town, the major builders, the guys that are the bad guys, usually, as far as most people think, they know what we expect of them. And they come in prepared to give it to us. So
And
it's-
we've had builders step over the line, and we've said, no, that's not right. They say, yeah, okay, and they fix it. Again, this is that whole cooperative nature that we're trying to deal with. I do want to mention one other thing too, which is sort of the opposing view of what Joe said. Joe talked about an applicant who's denied. The public has the right to appeal any of our decisions. It takes, was it one abutter or 10 concerned
10.
citizens, I believe?
10
Sign a letter, then they can appeal any of our decisions to DEP.
10 registered voters, that's all you need.
Do they have to be registered voters?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
I
I
thought
think
it
it's
was.
just 10 citizens. It's
Well,
10
10
citizens.
Not
of
running
Rutland.
for
10
office.
residents. 10 residents,
Right.
but I think they have to
10
be over 18.
residents agreed.
And that, by the way, happens from time to time. Fine.
Oh, Bryce Lemon.
Most of the time,
Glenwood.
yeah, most of the time, things go along with exactly the same set of work that we did, because they use the work that we've done to show why we set the conditions that we did and why we believe that they're reasonable. And I can't think of a single case when DEP's gone further than what we suggested anytime it's been appealed. I could be wrong, I just don't remember any.
And I hate to make it sound bad, but it's not particularly difficult to meet the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act for an individual single-family home. So, subdivision's a little bit different, but for an individual single-family home, there's a lot of kind of exemptions that the act kind of already states that because you're building a single-family home, we know that it will not impact these interests. So we kind of have not less oversight, but there's we have the basis of the 20-foot policy. The engineers have been adhering to that pretty well recently. I think in the last couple of years, putting the markers out. But I think we've started to incorporate some of the non-traditional items as well that kind of haven't been typically standard, like the markers. And I've been pushing for some native plants, but that's about it. So we're getting there.
So it's a bit longer than I think you folks intended to stay. So I have one last question, but before I do, I want to ask, does the commission have anything else?
I have one other question.
Please.
a while back, I ran into a problem with getting people appointed to this board more than once. And in response to that, one of the town administrators, past town administrator, Margaret, I thought had written up a policy and procedure for appointments to boards. And I wanted to get someone appointed, Melissa. And the select board at that time attempted to obstruct that. All right, and the way I was looking at it, I'm saying, here we have a person who is a conservation agent and brings that expertise to the table. All right, so we get that kind of expertise, and it doesn't cost the town a cent. And the select board at the time, for whatever personality conflicts or whatever reasons they had, sought to obstruct that. The other thing I had was, I had some people that were up for reappointment. And those folks were attempted to be replaced, Peter being one of them. All right. Jared being one of the, was the appointee that
Nice.
we had never met. No one on the board knew who Jared was. Okay, he had never been to one of our meetings.
Scary Sam.
All right. Jared is absolutely fantastic. He's an asset to this board. Right, but we did not have the knowledge ahead of time of who Jared was. All right, and I was asked to write a letter of recommendation for someone I had never met, did not know. Twice.
And I had no idea I was
Yeah.
supposed to come in and meet you guys.
Poor Jared.
Right. So Jared got stuck in the middle, and we almost missed out on a good appointment, number one. All right, but there was a policy, I thought, that was already written by Margaret in place, that the way the appointments work on these boards, all right, appointed boards, not elected, all right, is that the person wishing to serve on that board comes to the meetings, approaches the board, speaks to us, sees how the board works, and then the board talks to him or her and makes a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. Now, the Board of Selectmen ultimately has the authority to appoint, not anyone here, but the Select Board ultimately has the authority to appoint. In my case, it was the authority to disappoint. And that's something I don't see it occurring in this board, right? But I think that policy should be resurrected, all right? If it was even written in the first place.
Noted, and
All right,
I'll work.
but I think it would be a good thing to, this way here, this board chooses the member to recommend to the select board. The select board ultimately chooses whether to go forward with it or not, all right, which is the way it should be. All right, and this board should not be pressured by the select board to put certain people on, because that's like packing the Supreme Court, it's not gonna do anybody any good. All right, but I ended up with key members on this board, all right, Peter, Melissa, Jared, all right, and even Tamika, all right. This was a team that I was building, all right, and I ran into so much grief and aggravation, all right. Maybe it was me, right, because I know there were certain select board members that didn't like me because I have a problem with calling it the way I see it. All right, and I think that that's not the way to, it needs to be a more hand-in-glove type of relationship, and it holds true with all of the boards and commissions in town. And I'm glad to see the select board. I commend you for making the effort to come in here and talk to us tonight and actually put up with me. Gary knows what it's like to put up with me.
Well, I'm learning stuff. I'm learning. I don't know.
But
Set your timer.
again, I think that, a policy like that protects both boards, this board and your board.
Well, I know that that's how we are operating. but we'll certainly look to see if there was something written, because you're right, I mean, people come and go off of boards and commissions, and it's good to have.
That was back at a time when I was really hurting for members and I was having problems with quorum. And I was trying to
Well,
do
obviously
anything
you
I
were
could
hurting.
do to get members. I even talked Kimberly.
Got him back.
There is an appointment policy. It does not cover having potential members come in and sit on a meeting to see how it goes.
So that would, you know,
But I think
Good
most boards
practice.
request or require that, and most boards are.
Well, in order to write a letter of recommendation.
it's a
Yeah.
good.
Right.
I mean, it's important for the people to know what the boards they're signing up for are actually doing too, because I think a
And
lot
how
of
they
people just
operate.
don't know. Yeah. I mean,
And I think to potentially revisit the policy, because I've also heard on the flip side that it can be intimidating to come in front of, as a new person, to come in front of an already established board, especially if it's potential to be a position, a seat that is potentially contested in, as far as appointments go. And I think
Contested by who?
Well,
Multiple people for one seat.
people that are looking for a position, you know, if there's one opening on Concom, there's someone that's already appointed that's looking for reappointment, and also 2 or 3 other people. Maybe, I don't know. I think it can be intimidating at times, not specifically for Concom, just in general, to have people come that aren't necessarily familiar with town government or the workings. But I hear
But
your
that's why
point.
the ultimate authority lies with
Right,
Board of Selectmen.
right, right, and I hear your point. You know, I hear your point, and I appreciate it, because I was wrapped up in all of that also. So,
Well, you were there for some of it. You didn't.
right,
You
not
weren't there for all of it.
no, but
But you saw it. You
right.
know what I'm talking about.
yeah, and I think that we as a town are hurting for volunteers anyway, especially for, you guys are volunteers, right? I mean, you're appointed by us and you're volunteers. You're not
Make
receiving
big
any payment, you're not,
That would make big
like,
money.
yeah, I got a cough drop. Skip.
That's true.
It's my daily allowance.
And I took one
So-
from you,
Say
so we split
volunteers?
it.
I've been waiting for a paycheck. I haven't seen it.
Do you want my cough drop?
I will say, there are 5 of us here now, one of us is on vacation, and yes, there is an open seat, so anyone out there, Mr. and Mrs. Public, please. I know I've been talked to a few times about people thinking about it, but nobody's
But they never
followed through yet.
I
Yeah.
tried.
And
No one wants to bite.
when I hear people that are potentially interested, I encourage them to, now with Zoom, to at least hop on Zoom and listen, because I think that that's a great way. I appreciate the Zoom. I've been delinquent recently, but being able to be on, just so I understand what's going on around town. And so if somebody calls and is like, what's going on? Like, oh, Concom's looked at it, like it's going through the process, or reach out to, Peter or Concom or whatever. So I appreciate that aspect, and I encourage other people to take advantage of it.
And I would add that I would imagine that there's nobody on this board that, we wouldn't necessarily, somebody that's interested, say, you gotta go and sit and be judged, but, to set up a meeting one-on-one, here's so-and-so's contact information, set up a quick phone call.
Yeah.
Actually, Carol, if I may, I think it's the exact opposite. I think someone should come in and observe to judge us, to judge if the committee works the way that a potential candidate might be interested in. Do we look like a fun group?
And
Answer,
to-
we're a
and to
very fun
Leah's
group.
point-
Are we?
Yeah.
Zoom
But I
is a
think-
nice
yeah.
place to kind of hang out and watch
I think
that
that is
for
a good
little
first
bit.
step, though. The phone. I mean, that's what I do
Yeah.
with potential members. Hey, I see you're interested. Let's set up a call, or come
Yeah.
to the office.
They can call me and I'll give them
Everybody.
And that would be,
Oh no, you know the truth. Uh-oh.
Yes.
so you would, that your position does instruct somebody that you need to get a recommendation, and then it's like, do you know the chair? Have you met with anybody? And so that's, we probably should write that somehow into a procedure to build out a little bit more what we have in place to help form these relationships.
And I guess my other kind of caution or way to consider things is some of our boards and commissions have had members who have served a very long time, which there's a lot of benefit to that, and also there's benefit to having new members also. And so sometimes it's easy to make a reappointment of someone who's been on a board because everybody knows how they work, you work well together, everything. But sometimes for the benefit of the mission of whatever board or commission, it's, in my mind, beneficial to sometimes have
Fresh eyes.
new interests, right? And so that's not,
Well, that's why you reappoint. So if you find someone that's been on a board for a long time and is not necessarily
right,
keeping up with the times or contributing as well as they should, you don't have to reappoint.
right, no, but that's what I'm saying is that sometimes the expectation is because I've been on the board, I will be, and it's not specific to this board, it's just in general, that because I've been on the board, I will be reappointed, or that, you know, we do the appointments. And it's sometimes, especially if there's other interested individuals, it deserves more careful consideration, or conversation.
There is certainly a balancing act the select board needs to have in order to consider the knowledge required to be an effective board member.
Especially on Concom.
Right, I mean,
Permitting.
yeah, there are,
Permitting boards.
yeah,
Yeah.
permitting boards have a lot more in-depth knowledge required to be successful at it than, and I don't mean to pick on them, I'm not trying to insult them, but the 300th committee. That's an entirely separate notion of what's needed to be useful, or the 4th of July, because that's at least a recurring. So, yeah.
But so don't scare everybody away now, Peter. You just said we need another person, and now you're scaring them all away, so.
Well,
But, you know,
there's also preparing them, because they need to be aware of what they're getting into in all
But they don't need
cases.
to hit the ground running.
Nope,
They
no,
they
we have
certainly
a
need
lot.
to just
We
wanna,
we
they
have
wanna
6
learn.
other people here
Yeah.
who are ready to help out.
Exactly.
And
They-
that's, I think that conservation commissioners are one of the most, or conservation commissions are one of the most well-prepared because we have the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners that have a whole new orientation training program that's free. You get the handbook for a month. So, I mean, to onboard Concom is probably one of the easier boards, ironically, for permitting especially. So, I mean, I'm happy and thankful for that, but. good
Right,
luck.
MAC has a fantastic set of programs for education. As a lot, there are 2 large meetings a year, and they have
Monthly meetings.
monthly meetings, and they have courses that go on. Sometimes they're webinars, sometimes they're in person, and
You can get
they've
some-
all been valuable, the ones I've taken.
I mean, it goes from the basics of what is the Wetlands Protection Act to site plan review and all that good stuff, so.
I teach the erosion control. I've
Nice.
done it like 6 or 8 times now.
That's
And
rough.
now that it's gone hybrid, a lot more people go, which is great. I think they really appreciate that.
Well, thank you guys.
Yes.
No, I wanted to thank you for reaching out. We're happy to set this up and have this discussion. I have a larger question, which is a little horrible and ugly. How do we do this kind of thing with more groups of people? I mean, look, Concom has had issues with communication with the planning board. I think we've solved them. I haven't heard complaints lately, and I'll let Tamika tell me in private later if I'm not.
Way to call it out.
Are you asking Peter to have other groups come sit with you, or
I think
to
just
do this
looking at,
again?
I think even just holistic communication throughout boards as well.
That's
So-
really what I'm asking. How do we tie all the boards, all the members together so that we are a common community acting for the public good?
I think that's one of the things we had talked about is trying to do like a retreat day or ideally quarterly, but I think that that's a big ask, maybe biannually, all boards and commissions meeting or something. But I think we had talked about a lot, Carol, about a retreat of some sort and tying that in with the public education and outreach as far as highlighting what all the boards and commissions do, where there's openings, how the process goes if they're an elected or an appointed board or.
And this is, I hope that the select board can right now be a conduit to start this off with. And we do have another meeting with, I don't remember whom, in a couple of weeks, so we're gonna keep chugging away at this, and I think that where we can start seeing some areas to help things happen, we can do that, but, you know, we don't wanna own it, like I said, maybe we can just be a conduit for the moment.
I think our best resource right now has been Tamika because she
Oh,
has her hands in
right,
everything.
right, you know, she
So-
knows everything that's going on.
But I think, I mean, just her knowledge from planning, and because a lot of our applications are happening at the same time, they overlap, but we don't necessarily know what's going on with planning, vice versa, I would assume. So I think that is probably the first line of communication that we need to work on a little bit better, but it has been.
It used to be very simple when the town was a lot smaller, because everybody that was on a commissioner board wore more than one hat. You know, and that's how the communication occurred. I mean, it was always a homogeneous mix. Not so much today, because the work is a little bit more difficult, there's more of it, and hence more volunteers, more people. The town has gotten bigger, the demographics have certainly changed. So it's, you know, something I think that needs to be paid attention to at this point, because we lose touch with one another, and I think that works to our detriment.
You know, if it's the planning board or if it's anybody else, you know, ask for a working meeting. What's working for you, what's working for them, what do they, you know, do you have ideas about something that would make your job easier, more transparent? It's probably the same story in every town, in every industry, in everything, you know, teams
We might be
working
unique, but
together.
not that unique. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we might like to think that we're so different.
We're all
Well, there are some
the
things that are
same
unique
problem.
and others that aren't.
Yeah, yeah.
Every town.
Every time. And this is just
So you
part
want
of
the
the
board to
growing.
go through you? You want this board to go through the select board, to go to
You know, if
planning?
it has to go to that, but I am a firm believer that you don't go this way to get there, you know, unless you need to.
Yeah, you move it to
Go
the lowest.
straightly.
Yeah, you're the support.
Yeah.
Waiting in the wings.
And I think because, whereas planning is another elected board, I think I hesitate as select board to get involved in another,
Hesitate? Why?
in another elected board.
That's right, they're not doing what this, mine, oh, but let's not go on that bit.
You gotta come back sitting down here before you can talk
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. Right, gotta stop right now.
No, you know, and like I said, hopefully we're starting to open up the lines and.
Absolutely.
I also want to thank you, by the way, for coming to our meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Made it much easier for us, anyway.
We're a fun group,
We didn't open the meeting.
you know that.
Oh, you should have.
Right, because we have a,
Well, not only that, oh yeah, I forgot to say, we're on Zoom. We are being recorded. We are being broadcast live, and we will be rebroadcast on channels 191, 192, and on YouTube, and on our VOD stream. Oh yeah.
You need a
It's only an hour
checklist.
late.
You need a checklist.
so we're gonna piggyback to Joe's opening, and then Carol can close ours. Since he opened with us. We introduced ourselves,
It's true.
so.
So are we making a motion to adjourn, or?
Luckily, we didn't have any.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the
Karen,
select
make a
board.
motion. And luckily, we made no decisions,
Do we have a
right?
second?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I was looking for somebody to.
Yeah.
Jake is on.
Anyway, Happy New Year to you anyway. Are you gonna say hello to somebody in the back room before you leave?
Yes.
No, thank you.
I just,
I have to leave you guys.
bye.
Bye, Skip.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Do you
you.
have a flat chair?
What?
Do you have a flat chair?
What's in that cup?
That one was better.
This one ain't too bad.
Yes. I got you. All right, thank you. Have fun.
Alrighty.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Tanisha.
We'll miss you. I miss you too.
Now it's back to normal.
Good luck.
See you, Skip. Good
Keep
luck,
it later,
Skip.
guys. Don't yell at me when I, never mind.
Okay,
No,
now,
we'll wait till your back is turned.
yeah, we'll wait till you're out of the room, then we'll talk about you.
All right.
On camera.
So you can watch it later.
So you can watch it later.
Yes.
So let's go back and hit our earliest
Are they
thing.
going to another building?
Yes.
Okay, because he put his hat on. I was like, is he just going in the other room?
No.
We
There
walk
are
out
no
the
other
door.
rooms in this build. Well, actually, I guess there is one upstairs, but practically all the other rooms are shut off at the Smithsonian exhibit.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
Do they have to go to the annex?
They're going to the annex, where they think they can't be surveilled.
Little do they know.
Moving on, minutes from December 6th.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Even though we're all here, roll call.
Dan's eye.
Chancelucci, aye.
Telco I.
Crane eye. Done. We have a request for a certificate of compliance for 151, 153, 155. We actually have 3 different forms. Hold on. Those are the forms.
So I think it's just 155 that we're holding, because that was the markers.
Yes.
And he said
well,
he'd come back in the
I was
spring.
going to say, there's an email right here. There's 155.
No, that's Tamika's email though.
You're right. If I scroll up, I will see his response.
Yeah. Yeah, 155. I will address the marker issue in the spring and try again. And he pulled the
Okay.
pipe out. It was just a piece of trash.
Yeah.
We should have just pulled it.
Did we care about kind of the edge of that
I
front yard being a little bit unstabilized?
She reached out to my God, what's his name at Board of Health?
Harry.
No, Harry. The heck's
No,
Harry?
it's Rick.
Rick. I knew it was an R.
Rich.
Rich. And I don't think he had any concerns.
Okay. I was thinking more just
Harry.
erosion control.
No, I didn't say Harry. I said Harry.
Oh, Harry. Oh, I thought you said
He's
Harry.
the builder.
I thought you were. Oh God.
Okay, so the pipe is gone. 155 dropped the ball. You missed that, but all right. So then I guess we only have 2 COCs
For Turkey Hill.
to consider for Turkey Hill, which is
151 and
151,
153.
153. So we'll ignore 155. Come on, where are you? There's the as-built for 151, which I think we saw last time, didn't we?
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
And here's 153 as-built. Anything else outstanding about these 2 properties? I think we're going to do each individually, so I'd like a motion for 151, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Nada.
Roll call.
Dan's eye.
Chancelucci, aye.
Telco I.
Crane eye. And now one for 153, please.
Make a motion to accept the request for certificate of compliance for 153.
Second.
Discussion?
No, I heard a noise. I'm sorry. I'm easily distracted.
Yes. Ooh.
Well, I thought it was coming from your computer.
Roll call.
Telco I.
Chancelucci, aye.
Dan's eye.
Crane eye.
So should we move down? He's a little scary right now.
Maybe. Slide that way.
Sorry, because there's the 155 that we don't have. Moving on
We never got the as-built too, right?
to 155. That's
155. We'll
Yeah.
still need that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we have a request for a COC from Dave Lucier for 232 Barre Paxton Road. This is the actual as-built.
So,
And I visited it today in the
Okay.
rain.
yeah, how did it look?
And it was working.
It was working fine. He built up a berm pretty much along this
Okay.
entire line. So everything that gets to this point feeds very cleanly into that culvert.
Okay.
I saw no overflow. I saw nothing
Culvert?
going over the driveway.
Or catch basin.
It's the
This-
catch basin, right? The
I
one
can't
right.
read
This
that.
looked like a culvert. I mean, I didn't look at it that closely. I didn't even get out of my car, I'll admit it. So,
'Cause
there's
I
a
saw-
catch basin
I saw
here, but that's not
that
what it
structure
captures.
right there.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was that or if there's
Another one?
something else.
I think there's
I
a
didn't have a
culvert
chance to go
across
out
the
there.
road right there, and I think
Yeah.
it feeds into that. And
Okay.
there could be dry well as well to actually hold some water. I don't know. I didn't look at it, but everything was
It's going
functioning.
in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
and
good.
and there was water flowing out. Now, it wasn't gushing. This was not the heaviest rain today, but
Yeah.
it was enough to
Those
say.
fat drops, man.
Yeah.
They hurt. Sorry. I need to go to bed.
I went over there when it was the heavy rain when we had
Oh,
it,
did you? Yeah.
and it was everything was working.
Good.
Good.
Dave said that he had been over there when it was raining, but as always, we
Yep, check.
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. I like it. Trust but verify.
Okay, so how about a motion for this COC?
Just a random question. Assuming this had a major site plan, does planning do anything to close out their permits in this town? Or any final review? It didn't seem like it from
I
the
don't
file
think-
that
I
we
don't
pulled
think
from
so.
planning.
I don't think so.
Just curious.
like us, they're doing, monitoring
'Cause
of
I don't
active
think there's
sites
an
and all,
official-
sure.
I don't think there's official requirements to get like a closeout for major
Not-
site
Not
plans.
No.
typically, no.
But I know some towns require some, specifics to say, okay, you're done, you're in compliance. Just curious. That's all. The answer is no. The answer is no.
Motion?
I'll make a motion. Approve the COC for 232 Barre Paxton Road.
Second.
Roll call.
Gentilucci, aye.
Talk eye.
Dan's eye.
Glad I was looking.
Crane eye, surprise.
I'm still waiting for you to make a motion.
I tried. Tried so hard.
Oh yeah.
Scott's not here to amp me
that's
up.
for future. So now let's talk about our. What do we need to? Follow up on the site visit at 213 to 215 Barre Paxton.
I thought he'd be here.
Oh, yeah.
So sad.
So who would like to give a report on what we saw?
Anybody remember?
We were all
what
there.
saw?
For once, we were all there. That are here. We're all there. Well, in my opinion, I saw some wetland fill with some wood chips
Mhm.
and some erosion on the front from where they cleared, along the entrance. Just that
Mhm.
slope
The right
thing.
side there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do we say? Just keep an eye on it for spring, put blankets down maybe. Did we ever ask anything else?
I think we told them stay the hell away from the wetlands.
Yeah,
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 kinda
because he
sit
said the
tight-
logger's
sit
gonna be
tight for
done.
Yeah,
now.
get further back than they
Yeah.
were.
I think the hard part is gonna be, I think the next step would he'd have to have a professional wetland delineation done.
Yeah, I believe you are
Yeah,
exactly correct.
I would
ma'am.
agree. I was thinking that we were out there. I didn't want
Yeah.
to say it while we were
I
out there,
know.
but I was thinking to myself, it's hard to tell exactly where the line is here.
Because
In the front section especially, I said, is it there? Is it way over
Yeah.
there?
Right,
Is
is
it
it
way
here?
over
Is it
well,
there?
because
10
it's
feet
very
back? Is it
disturbed
20
in the
feet
front,
back?
so
Exactly.
there's definitely
tough to
some
tell.
wiggle room. But I think as they, continue to utilize the site, I mean, just by human habit, you
Mhm.
you just go a little bit further, just a little bit further. So
Yeah, it's not going to harm anything, right?
just some wood chips.
Would you require the whole thing or just where
I think
work is occurring?
I think he should decide where work will be occurring and
Has occurred and will occur
Yeah.
potentially.
where they want to
Yeah.
be working and where it has, and then
And that'll tell us what the
Yeah.
regulatory framework should be.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think the goal would be to at least define a workable area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
So
I
say you
and I
stay
don't
in
think
here.
and I don't think he gets away without actually doing
Yeah,
a full delineation. I can't see
I
how we
can't-
can do
not on this
our
one.
work properly without acceptance of
Yeah.
the delineation.
Yeah.
If it was like a one-time project, they're never going back, then it'd be like, okay, we can say this area was impacted, maybe pull some of these wood chips out. But if it's going to be utilized consistently
Right.
as a business.
Okay. So for now, we'll set this on the back burner. I'm not going to say close it out.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
saying on the back burner, and then
Well, do we want to send him a letter
I can,
telling him what we're going to be, what we need from him is some kind of an area where they're going to be working?
I think what we could do is I could tell Tamika. I wonder if he even sent her an email. I wonder.
I didn't see one, but that doesn't mean anything.
I can have her say, the commission didn't make any formal findings as you weren't present, but most likely what is coming is
Yeah.
delineation.
Well, give him a heads up.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I think if he plans to do more on his property, you might as well just
Get a site plan.
have it all flagged, because if you start doing it in pieces, in the end, it's going to cost him more
Yeah.
to have
Yeah, and
somebody
then
come
you'll
out
have different
multiple
people
times.
with different perceptions.
Yeah.
A single viewpoint is going to be
Yeah.
so much better for him.
Yeah,
Yep.
because then he'll have a better idea of what he could do
Right.
with his
Yeah.
property going forward too. Like I forget, did he talk about possibly building a structure or
Yeah,
a house?
he's building
maybe
a
in the
house back there.
Yeah, that's what I thought he had said.
I
So
missed that one.
yeah,
Where was I?
He talked. I don't think he.
I was off in the woods.
He pointed it. No, but he pointed to where he's building it. But he said it when he was here last time that he wanted to build a single
really?
family
Yeah.
house there.
yeah.
I was not alive during that
What I
conversation.
don't remember is if that's going to be water, sewer, or
No.
I don't know. I don't know what's available there.
there's nothing available
Yeah, I
yet.
don't think
I
there's
don't think
anything
there's
there.
anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
In the boonies.
But
I'm aware of.
we'll see that when we see a plan, right?
Because you don't have anything, right?
No. No, well and septic.
Good old Wales.
Well, I wasn't sure because it's right along one of the major drags
Yeah.
in town, so I
Yeah.
didn't know if we.
Why would we have services in major drags?
That would
Well,
only
the other
make sense.
danger over there is that's commercial.
Right, right.
Yep.
Oh, that's very good. Yep. All right.
So I'll send Tamika a note if she has any contact information to give him a little heads up
We know
and
that
say, hey,
he was here, so we're sure that she has info.
yeah.
Alrighty. Next, notice of intent to sell. So Kevin Jarvie is selling. I actually, probably saw this when I glanced at it earlier. That's sort of the.
He's just doing one house lot, right?
That already has a house on it.
Yeah. 90
So
outside?
yes, so there is. He carved out through an A&R this portion of this property. Hold on, let me.
Why does that say Irish?
Because it's on the corner of Irish and
Hillside.
In Hillside?
Hillside. Yeah, yeah. Let
I
me.
didn't think Hillside was over there.
Yeah, where's that Hillside?
Here we go.
Am I crazy?
Fortunately, I have it right. It's this property. So this is actually slightly misleading. Come on, catch up, I dare you. So this is the part that was carved out, that was A&R'd.
Okay.
Do I have to be wrong?
Well, I'm really confused.
Yeah, I can look this up too.
Oh, what's the matter?
I don't know where the hell Hillside is.
Because this.
Oh, it's Emerald. It probably used to be Irish.
Oh, okay.
That's why. I was like, oh god. I was like, Milk River isn't off Irish.
No.
Jesus. Emerald.
But at one time.
Yeah. Okay. How long has Emerald been in existence? Forever?
I have no idea.
What?
You know? How long has Emerald been in existence?
Emerald Road?
Yeah.
A
Forever?
long time.
Okay. Scary right now. Don't go down there.
So this portion of this larger property was A&R'd out. I don't know why this isn't caught up because I thought it was A&R'd a while ago. But he talks about an. Hold on.
Okay. I get it.
Let's scroll back up. Blah blah blah. He says.
Shows up as Emerald on this one, both sides.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I think it is.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it didn't say that, but this outside is a much larger parcel,
Mm-hmm.
and then, I mean, so the original farm engineers I can tell was this plus another part over here. I think.
Yeah, it was the whole.
Yeah. But in any event.
Well, I don't see this.
So yeah, this is 1.5 effectively an acre and a half for effectively $250,000. Does anyone on the commission see value to the town
To own a home?
to own this land?
Can I live there? No, I don't think
You
so.
can be the caretaker.
So
I'll ride the.
I think I'd like a motion of no interest from the Conservation Commission on this.
So moved.
Second.
Gotcha, Jim.
Roll call.
Delacroix, aye.
Dan's eye.
Chancelucci, aye.
Crane, aye.
I
Done.
don't have the brain capacity for your finger pointing tonight.
That's right, because finger pointing is so difficult.
Well, it is when you go every which way.
Job description for the conservation agent. Do we have anything on that yet? Because we need to get cracking on this. Because
I totally said I was going to do that, didn't I? I think I did.
I wasn't going to point it out.
You don't have a
but now
copy?
that you
I think
mention
I
it,
You don't have a copy of yours?
I've been looking at you for this for a reason.
I put my dog down, okay? It's a sad day.
You don't have a copy of yours?
Sure do. I just redid mine. Got a nice raise.
No. Cool.
Yeah.
Use that.
Perfect. It's going to be a little outside the budget, but it'll be fine.
That's all right.
So,
Minor edits.
Minor edits.
in
I'll do that.
thank you.
For real.
Please.
So sorry.
Always
Pretty
ask
please.
for more than what you really expect to get.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Related to that is...
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I understand. I get it. Related to that is this. which is our budget for next year. So
It's horrible looking. I'm sorry.
I don't care.
Okay.
This is how I work on it. And then I have to transfer it to somebody else's spreadsheet.
All right, so you're moving
No, I'm not
wages.
saying it's
So-
a you thing.
So these wages are Tamika,
Yep,
Okay.
and that's been out of the WPA account forever.
Yep.
These three were supposed to have moved 2 years ago and didn't.
What do you mean move?
That moved to come out of the WPA account as opposed to a general fund
Okay.
account that's appropriated.
So those are currently budgeted from the general fund right now.
This
No,
year
they-
they are.
they
This-
appropriated out of wetlands protection.
No,
No.
no, they will be next year. This year, all of those are out of the general fund.
Okay.
Oh,
This year
really?
meeting
Yes.
2022.
2023, FY 2023,
2022?
which is where we are.
Yeah.
We're in
Right.
23.
I'm confirming if you meant this past year or this coming
I
year.
still
mean
23.
FY 2023 with
Okay.
the one we're in, the fiscal year we're in the middle of.
Yeah, good
Those are
point.
all
It
out of the
sucks.
general
First read.
fund.
Makes no sense.
But based on a conversation with Gary, the only general fund request we're going to make is for this one, which is for the conservation agent,
Okay.
which, as you can see, is a smidge over $18,000. And if I go in, so I sort of made up a number that went along with our.
Yeah. Well, and I think Paxton
Professionals-
said they were doing 35 an hour, right?
I didn't remember. That was
I
part of
think
my
it was
problem.
35.
I saw
So-
a wide range when I did a search. on
There
it.
had been a wide range. I sort of picked a number just to have a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Um,
good
I
high
think
rate.
the first number that came to my mind was around 35 because there's no benefits, right?
Right.
Right.
So my thought
That's why
was,
you'd have to bump it up.
right, can we go a little higher to entice someone to kind of cover the fact that it would be part-time and no benefits, which to me that seems reasonable.
Do we want to put in 35 in the hopes that we can join with Paxton on something?
So this is where I would if I knew the MTP charts, but all the page scale charts.
Oh,
And I don't want to put in a number that isn't on the chart today. Even though
forget about those
I
things.
believe that we are going to have the exact same salary as Paxton, or the hourly rate, I should say, as Paxton, in order for it to be
joint.
a
Yeah.
joint, a
Yeah.
regional service. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, I can tweak this number. I have an extra day, so I'll bump it up to the next. I'll bump it
Whatever
up
it
to
is,
an
yeah.
area that's around closer to 35
Okay.
instead of 34.
Okay.
Especially
You're only
if-
looking at a 46-cent difference.
yeah, it's not a lot, so I probably need to go up one step
10
or two
hours
steps.
a week.
Yeah.
It's $4.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Um,
I want to say they said 35.
again, I remember they said it, but I don't remember what the number was.
So I remember
the,
going, oh, that's
um,
pretty decent.
Yeah, when we
The,
met in the
Matters
in
for
the
Paxton?
annex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh my god, what am I doing? I was trying to find
I have
their
no idea what
employment.
you were looking for.
I was trying to find
Right,
their job
But
description.
Peter's doing the right thing by putting in a known number.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, would you get the number you said, Peter?
This is based on what we saw the ranges were.
Yeah.
I went to our pay chart
Okay.
and I said that
For the
is most
town.
closely aligned with
Gotcha.
level 5, step 1.
Good.
Got it.
So that way
A scales.
that does two things. It gives room for growth for steps,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to happen every year, snicker, till you max out. And we can always bump it back. But again, if 5.2 or 5.3 is fine, if we go up to 6.1, I'll see what the numbers are.
Their hourly rate is $28.36 to $37.21.
Okay.
So you're good.
Oh, it's Paxton?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And they 16 hours a month. I lied, not 19, 16. It's 4 4.
16 a month?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. 4
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
4 4. I had the 4 right,
Yeah,
just not the
fine.
overall number.
That's all right.
Other things that you should know about in purchase services. I'm allocating 10 hours of town council time
Mm,
to review our bylaw and any regs that we come up with this fiscal year.
awesome.
And
Is 10
then,
hours enough?
what's that? Should be. Oh yeah,
If we do our good job.
we will do a good job because before, never mind, I won't talk about all of that, but I will say, I am convinced we will have a good bylaw that will have That will probably take no more than based on all the bylaw review I've been involved in, it'll take them 2.5 hours and they'll be done. But I also left us a bucket for other legal fees, just in case we have another enforcement action or we have other opinions that we need. I was astonished when the Cable Advisory Committee asked for a legal opinion, and one of the things they charged us for was over $2,000 because it was that many hours, and that was preparing the opinion for us. It was small amounts of research and whatever, and email, but writing. And by the way, it was a very nice opinion. It made things very clear to us what we
I
needed
love
to do.
those.
Yeah.
I hate when you get an opinion. It's like,
well, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
I could do this, but you should
You can do that.
say, yeah. Oh God.
And also, we have always had a couple $100. I took it down to $300.
Have we ever used it for anything?
Yeah.
What would you use it for?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Because stuff gets put onto funny budget lines.
I'm aware.
I got
Been
the
there, done
last 5 fiscal year reports from the accountant,
Oh, good luck.
and I'm going through them in order to make sure that our numbers are good. Oh yeah.
Our numbers always worked out.
Yeah. And then other charges. We know our MAC dues are going up. We know that we're going to have, we suspect we're going to have to update our electronic signatures when we get a new member.
It's 105.
I know it is today.
But it might go up.
But in July, when we get a new member, what is it going to be? I don't know when it's going to go. Yes,
No,
I
the
know.
recording fee is 105.
Today.
Right.
Until the next time they change it. I don't know what it's going to be then. So if I leave a little fudge, it's all the
Because
better.
it's gone up.
It almost doubled.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember
It was
recording
75.
orders of conditions like 3 or 4 years ago,
75.
and it's gone up since then.
So, and then,
Fudge?
yeah, it's
I assume that's
stuff that we don't know what to
actual
buy,
fudge.
that we don't know what we're going to buy, but we're going to buy little things.
Fudge.
This is
$200 in fudge.
In fact, I don't have some. Oh, that's
I'm
right.
down.
So we have snacks during our meetings.
Wait. Yeah.
One of the things,
Snack
Actually,
line.
you know what we can buy with that? Signs.
Ooh.
Flashing?
I'd be more interested in buying an auger. So we could
Yes.
pull soil
Oh, I
samples.
thought about that.
Useful, Joe. We don't go for useful. We go for
We go for
flashy.
fun and interesting.
Oh,
Are these
God.
have to be LED solar signs? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if
blank?
they're going to be inside the building, solar probably wouldn't work that well unless you rig the roof.
Unless you left the lights on all
Well, you know, we got windows right there.
That's well, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
you can
also
put them out
more
there
over
when
there.
you're
Did
not,
you know
not
that?
here.
Yes.
When you're not using
Oh,
them, you
yes,
put them
I
out by
do.
the window.
But an
There we
alarm
go.
goes off if you open that door.
No, it doesn't.
Not the last
No.
time.
It is supposed to now. They put
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
did
They
fix it?
alarmed it.
Oh, good.
no, I was talking about the last time I saw it used.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so mad.
That's
I
the
missed
first
that.
time I realized there was a door there.
It's there's like
Jared
whoever
caught
would've
it.
known.
Yeah.
Jared
It's like,
So I have right now $100 for supplies. I'm probably going to bump that up because Tamika goes through close to 100 today on paper and ink, and with another person coming in, I'm probably going to make that 250.
Oh yeah.
So we're
Do we
looking-
have to think about like laptop costs and stuff like that?
Crap, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
if we have to supply.
What?
Like laptop like
Computer.
IT costs
Oh,
for the
Would that be out of
email.
our
So
budget
that
or
will
IT's
probably
budget?
go under supplies. So
There's
I'm
weird
oh
ones,
God,
Yeah,
do me a favor.
sorry.
Send me an email
Okay.
about that so I can.
Yeah, I'll remember. Yeah.
There's your
why don't
device
you make
right
a
there.
note right now while you're on your computer?
I'll set myself.
Send yourself an email right
I
now.
was just going to say.
No, because that's
I'm
when
trying to
look
do
at
you
my
a favor.
typing.
I know. No, I wasn't giving a face. He's typing weird things on there.
What else should we be thinking about that we need to get for this person? So we should actually explicitly look for an auger. I agree, even though it's probably small dollars.
Yeah.
It is, but they're sort of a gun to find.
They are.
Probably have to order it from someone.
I think I can delay a text to you.
My coworker has one. I'll ask her where she bought it.
That's okay. If
She's had
it's
it for
here,
like
I'll
20
remember. You don't need
years.
to send it.
Yeah,
But,
places went out of business a while ago.
What else do we need to do to outfit a person?
Do
Here's-
we do business cards?
Yeah.
Computer?
Oh, hold on. ID.
ID. Very important. Do we have to pay for an email? That's like $15 or whatever it is. Stupid amount.
We haven't had to yet.
Don't jinx it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to pretend that we don't.
Okay.
Except that we may not be able to.
Nice.
By that I mean it's...
We don't have enough licenses.
Yeah, we're at the edge. We've been fighting. That's why Tamika is
Things.
Laura Paradise and who was before Laura?
Why don't they just delete those accounts?
Because then the emails wouldn't be delivered, and they were all TA administrator accounts, which means that there's a lot, and select board administrators, which means that there's a lot of people who automatically send to Laura Paradise, like Zoom, to get bills for all the things. It's not that simple,
my
You have
unfortunately.
to change them all over first.
Yeah.
Before deleting.
There's a
the
lot
account.
of a lot of things this town's not really good at, so let's not go there.
What else? I mean, just general.
Now, an
like,
ID we probably
like,
don't have to pay for. You guys may remember this. You may not remember this. Well pre-COVID, we talked about getting
We tried
IDs.
so
and
hard.
Yeah, I
IDs.
remember we talked
Well,
about that. Yeah.
I'm sure I could bring it up again with the chief, and I'm sure we can do it because we have a prototype. We know there was a format that we could use. Looks, it's the same size as a driver's license. We just need it, punched and put a lanyard through it, and we're done.
Okay.
And I would like to get us that because it would be good to have ID.
Yeah, because we're out on.
Jared and I experienced that out on
Nice.
Glenwood Road Extension.
Oh, you didn't have your little card?
I did. That's what I showed was my card.
Yeah. Then you have to back it up with your license.
I just
to prove
noticed
you're
my
that person.
my card doesn't apply anymore.
The
So-
MACC card?
No, my
Oh.
the one I got from
Town of Rutland.
my
Then-
Town of Rutland card.
I don't have a Town of Rutland card.
Have
Yeah, you did.
Have you been sworn in?
Yeah. I don't have one.
Then go back.
I've never
I don't have
had
mine
one.
with me because I took them up when I went on
I leave
vacation.
mine
That's
in
the one
my
I
truck.
got when I first joined, but expires 2022. I never got a new one.
Yeah, and
Should I have?
in fact, they may not have replacements yet because they've had trouble getting the clerk
I
to
have
come in and sign them.
That's why.
no recollection. None. Cool.
So so I don't think we need to pay for ID, but I'll put on the list to keep track of it.
And just like other general supply, like safety vests. Like it's stupid stuff, but like stuff that we've never had because we've never
Yeah,
had it.
Hard hat,
Nope.
safety
Yeah,
vest,
hard hat,
sunglasses.
safety vest.
Yeah. Gonna need a hard hat, safety vest, probably a tape measure or two.
I love my little wheelie man. My little
I got two
whatever.
wheelie ones and I got the 300-foot
Yeah. Because the wheelie ones
fiberglass
aren't
one
good
and
with
another
hills.
100-foot.
Wheelie ones go a little further on the hills.
Yep. We had to use the 300-foot once. DCR
Oh God.
measuring out a 200-foot
Oh no, it's Alan still here. I'm so sorry, Alan.
right across the street from my house.
We wouldn't have to supply like boots, would we? Like a tire?
No,
clothing,
I would
anything like
not. Because they don't need to be special boots. If they needed
Yeah.
to be special, that would be one thing,
that?
but
Yeah, okay.
they get to
So-
choose their own attire. So sometimes I wear sneakers, sometimes I wear boots. Depends on how muddy it is.
Sometimes
And how much I remember.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
sometimes
basic.
my pants just go in the trash.
That's
afterwards.
That's basic attire though. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
The other thing you might want to consider is an optical tape measure because you can get them pretty cheap now.
Mm.
Price of those has come down.
Really?
Oh yeah, you can. It's a lot easier just to.
It's
No,
a
just
linear
to
distance
walk.
as long as you can find a spot to point it at.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That's
All you
true.
need is a tree or something.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure we'll think of so
More
many
things.
things.
So I'm going to bump the supplies line up quite
What
a
do you
bit.
got in your toolkit?
I was trying to think. I was like, I don't know. It's just in my trunk.
Give us an inventory of your
I
toolkit.
I have
was
an
gonna say, send me an
auger.
email.
Crowbars. That's what's in my truck.
What's it?
Crowbars. Popping manholes.
Oh God.
Not sure an
yes.
age won't need to pop
No.
manholes though.
No.
It's a fun day when you do though.
Oh, I love doing that.
I love it.
I'm not supposed to.
Auger,
Safety reasons,
hard
but I
hat,
do.
safety vest. I have a like a coat that says conservation on it. That's not necessary, but it's just when I'm out in the field, it's sometimes easy.
Rain gear,
Rain gear.
boots,
Nah.
like
Yeah, we
rain
should. We
boots.
shouldn't be paying for rain gear.
No.
That's.
Uh,
I wouldn't.
I think that's it. I think that's the
All right.
basics.
Okay.
Again, go through your trunk.
Go through my trunk. Got it.
Let us know if there's anything else I need to add, and we'll. And again, this stuff won't matter because it's all coming out of the WPA. which I don't even have a current balance of, but we gotta be,
Now, do you
This-
get a stipend on mileage?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
so do we probably end up paying for that, don't we? I wonder what the hell fund that comes out of.
Mine comes out of the general fund. So, like, I have a cap. I mean, I think it's like $500.
Can't be that much if you're driving around town, right?
See, the thing is, I know I went to as cable advisory committee, I went and visited somebody, and I was told, oh, be sure to get mileage in, which means I could be reimbursed, and I will guarantee you there's no line item in the cable budget for that.
But actually, we were told we could submit mileage.
I'm sure we can.
I'm sure
Oh,
we
yeah.
could. If we had money for it.
Submit like 2 miles round trip from my house to the
Yeah,
city.
I know. I don't know if anybody.
Work.
I don't know if anybody on the commission has ever submitted that. I mean,
Yeah.
I even rarely do it at work.
well, you
It's so
can't get
horrible.
gas money.
I can get mileage at work.
Yeah, but gas money you can't get.
No. I think I could fill up at the town station. So. I should try that one day.
All right.
Sorry.
I'm gonna-
Evolving.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think that'll do. Let me know if there's anything else. I have a.
And I think for the mileage, to Joe's point, is that maybe it should be a cap. It shouldn't be just mileage.
No, sure.
It should be, this is what it is. Whether it's.
Well, especially if it's somebody from out of town anyway, we don't want to include travel to get into town.
No.
No,
So,
no, normal
so
commute,
how we?
not counting.
Travel would be from
From town.
center of town
Yeah.
to
Right, from
wherever.
say
Wherever.
here.
But they have an office.
Well, that's
From
something
our
I'm wondering
put
about.
it this way, from our office to wherever.
Yeah.
But where does this person work?
Mm.
When
Unclear.
when writing reports and writing
That's a good
all this
question.
stuff, how do we deal with a space for that? Force them to come to the library?
You might want to talk to
But that's-
Gary. Gary may have something.
That's a really good point.
I mean, if it is remote, I think that's doable.
What about having that person show up at a meeting?
I would like that.
Do you go?
Yeah.
Do you?
I would kind of expect
I
it.
run it.
I was gonna say almost every commission I've ever been in front of, usually the agent
Yeah.
is there, and sometimes they play a vital role.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is physically here
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
as opposed to zooming in.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Oh,
I've seen both.
I think we can negotiate
Yeah.
that pretty
Yeah.
easily either way.
I don't think they have to be here in
I
person
think it's-
necessarily.
It depends on how interactive that person is with
Yep.
the plans,
That's true.
especially.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
where it gets a little trickier. So I don't know, but that's a future. First, we gotta.
I've seen it done where the agent was remote, and they worked Zoom just fine, brought the plans up, went over the projects, went over their observations, and I thought it went pretty smooth. So I think it can be done.
it's definitely person dependent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it can be done, but yeah, we'd have to
Yeah.
figure that out.
All right, I'm gonna save and close this for now, so we can get back to this. Hey, let's see why Alan's here.
I'm so
Why look,
sorry,
there's a
Alan.
letter to Blair
Should went
about Brintnal Estates.
So sorry.
Hey guys.
I'm not going to read this out loud to you. You can read as well as I can.
Yeah, yeah.
So Becca, put it on TV, please, so they can read it. Thank you.
How did you even notice? Like,
Where did
Because
that
I have it
occur?
right here.
Oh.
Where did that occur?
Where did what occur?
That.
do
we
you
know?
remember that big shaded plan that we were trying to determine what had been cut versus what hadn't?
Yeah.
I
That
actually
one.
went out and visited too.
So all right. So they're
It's sick
they're
that we
catching
can
up on that
communicate
now.
like that,
Yes.
but yeah.
Okay.
This is Brintnal, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hi, Alan. Thanks.
Yeah, didn't
Hey, how's it going? My
mic
microphone's finally working.
Peter.
Just well, thanks. Sorry it took so long to get to you tonight.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You can actually see the cutting now on Google Earth. Google Earth has 2022 pictures up, so you can compare 22 and 21, and you can see where the logger went outside the phasing plan.
All right. How do I get specific maps up here? Well,
Uh,
first
left.
one
down.
down here.
Yeah.
Mine just disappeared.
And
I
wait,
can
let
see
me
it.
think. This is Brintnal Estates.
up by the Mass Central Rail.
That's Main
Yeah.
Street? No, it's Muscatine.
Just by Bear Hill Village.
That's 56, right here.
Yeah. And yeah, that big opening is phase 1. And then if you go just south, you can see where all the cutting took place that shouldn't have.
How do I get different views? Different years? I don't know.
Oh, not on Google.
Oh, you probably have to use the Google Earth app
Yeah.
and not Google Maps. That's my mistake. All right, I don't have that.
It's not on your screen. Gosh dang it. Sorry. Unless it's in the bottom right. But I don't think so.
I don't think so either. That's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember walking.
when we
I remember
walked
the
this,
walk. I remember that it was
Mhm.
that he did.
Yeah. So, this happened back in 21, at the end of 21. So,
Right.
Tom reached out to the logger and hasn't heard anything from him. So, this letter is more of a reminder to Clee, basically telling him that he's responsible for the violation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wasn't there also one on?
Bryce Lemon?
Yeah, on Bryce Lemon.
Was there?
That little area?
Yeah, toward between phases 4 and 5. In that area,
Where
I
they
thought there was a
chipped?
lot more cutting than they were supposed to.
Not that I know
Not
of.
that you know. Okay.
They had, they brought, like a little skid steer through that little wetland area that they revegetated.
No, there's that also. But I was actually I'm remembering trees that had been cut, marked. Well, I don't remember if they were marked, but they
Well,
were
the
cut.
wetland line was a little off. when
That's
we
true
went.
also, yeah.
I hope they fix that.
But that's okay. This one's restricted. This is only about Brintnal Estates. And do I remember right? Does Brintnal Estate? No, it does not. I was thinking it was backed up to Bear Hill 2, but I'm not sure that it does. Because Bear Hill 2 is this whole area.
I don't know how you keep this all straight.
Wow. Yeah, how'd you know that?
I can't even keep Bryce Lemon straight.
Would that come off of Grizzly Drive?
Yeah.
Yes, because in fact, Bear Hill 2 is how Grizzly Drive connects completely to Brintnal, and this thing that's marked as a road that is only supposed to be a right-of-way for utilities, which is being used as a road as a secondary means of egress, basically, is moving up here somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's this one. It's probably this one
yeah,
right
no.
here.
It's that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Grizzly Drive is staying in the same place. And then where your cursor is, that's where the other egress is.
Yeah. Anyway, that's...
That's further out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like everything on...
Although when I went over there to look at that other thing that we had talked about,
Yep.
I drove in there and around to see. The area looked pretty clean. I mean, they.
All right.
I haven't been down there.
Yeah, I haven't been there for a while, but it also
kind
sounds
of
like...
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's good.
I know somebody who lives basically right next door to it, so I get
Updates.
reports anytime online about it.
Eyes on the ground. All right.
All right. Is there anything you'd like us to do, Alan?
No, not at the moment. I'm just waiting to hear back from Clee on what he would like to do.
Yeah,
You know.
what was the date on this letter? Oh, December. Oh, so it was very late last. Okay, it's only a few days ago,
Yeah.
so there's still
Yeah.
time to respond.
Yeah, definitely has time to respond. So I guess as soon as I hear from Clee, I can let you guys know as well, and tell you what the game plan is.
Okay.
Great.
Get it on the same page.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you for keeping us informed about this also, because it's good for us to be reminded about some of these things we've been through. You've heard us. We don't remember half of what we've seen, so.
And less of what we say.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you
you
for
too.
bearing with us.
Take care.
So we're going to do a fast look through the changes that I've made to the wetlands bylaw. They aren't big. I haven't done a ton of work. I haven't had that much time. But the big thing is, so hold on. Yeah, it all comes down. I remember you yelling at me about the definition, which is fine. It's okay. Right. No
Just
person
making
shall
up
alter
stuff.
any jurisdictional area. That's one of the big changes, and I define jurisdictional area very, very similarly to how it's defined in the regs.
So no wetland fill whatsoever.
Yeah,
That's what
did
you
you add
said.
that defined,
Sorry.
Oh,
Scroll a little too far because there's a lot. Jurisdictional area is a big. This definition I took straight out of the reg. And then added a couple things because I saw that we had words that weren't in there. So I said, yeah, sure, what the hell.
what the hell?
Now, one of the things, we need to be careful about two things in this bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
One is I have to shoot back up to our friend authority enacted under. This article is independent of general laws, chapter 131, section 40. That means that anything that we want in law, we have to mention. I'm not saying we need to copy that, because that would be fruitless. I'm saying that any element from GL 131, section 40 that we want to enforce, we have to put in our bylaw.
No.
Yeah.
yeah.
What?
Because we're doing
Enforce
something
is the
separate.
key word,
Yeah.
Anything we wanna
enforce. All
We
right,
already can enforce?
Yeah.
if you want it, if you bring it not exact necessarily, but similar thing into the bylaw,
Mm-hmm.
now you have the ability to fine.
Yeah.
Whereas under
Yeah.
131, you can't.
Yeah.
Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's
So I'm just saying, we want this bylaw to be inclusive of what's in 13140 plus whatever we
Yeah.
want to do in addition to it.
But I don't think we should have to reiterate WPA again.
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think
no,
so.
if you're going to put it in as part, if
Yeah.
you're going to do enforcement,
Yeah.
In order to enforce, we have to put it in ours.
It has to be
Otherwise,
in
the
the
DEP
bylaw.
has to enforce.
Yeah.
You-
But I think
but you
there's gotta
can't
be
just
just a brief
reference-
statement.
you can't just reference some other law.
The problem is,
Doesn't that mean we
this
couldn't
statement that I
enforce
stole
anything
from
right now?
other bylaws is this
It's not a
is
bylaw.
independent of.
Yeah.
Those words
Yeah.
mean
It
a lot
separates it.
to the lawyers.
Like I
So in
get
order
what
for
you're
us to enforce and to further regulate, we need to give ourselves the ability to do that. And if it's only in the WPA, it does not give us the ability to regulate and enforce. Because WPA does not give Concoms the authority to regulate and enforce.
Yeah, they do. I'm so confused.
That would mean we couldn't
We couldn't
regulate or
enforce right
enforce
now.
anything right now without a bylaw.
We have a very hard time. What do we enforce? We use the DEP to enforce. The most we can do
Well-
is C&Ds.
Incorrect.
Hmm?
Incorrect. We could enforce anything we wanted to under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Right. But how
We
you,
just choose not.
it's
choose
the
not to, but,
definition of
like,
enforce. I think that's what we're getting.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Enforce, I think Peter is saying, using a fine, for argument's sake. Whereas we cannot fine
Yeah.
under,
I get that. Yeah.
so I think that's the difference between enforce and
It's the
enforce.
totality of enforcement.
Okay.
It's not just,
Does that mean we'd have to spell out every
See that?
instance in order to be able to fine for violation?
Well, you
Yeah. That's
don't have to spell out everything, just the ones that you think that you were going to run into.
Okay.
But you should be enforcing every violation.
I mean, no, we're not going to worry about salt marshes.
Right.
So anything that's written about that, we can leave that out. You know, oceanfront, we're not
Some won't be
necessarily
applicable.
concerned about. Yeah.
yeah, we strip out all the stuff that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, the oceanfront, that ain't here yet. So
Not yet.
Not yet.
Someday.
That's right. Next year, we'll see.
Next year.
I'm still waiting to plant my palm trees.
Okay, so I spent a lot of time in a lot of WPA and the regs
Mm-hmm.
to figure out the definition of jurisdictional area, which is everything down to here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all of these spaces explicitly defined by the WPA. And all these are also defined, but these actually have better definitions in 13140 and 13140 plus. 13140 plus whatever we want to do in addition to it. So it's all of these spaces explicitly defined by the WPA. And all these are also defined, but these actually have better definitions in 13140 plus whatever we want to do in addition to it. So it's all of these spaces explicitly defined by the WPA. And all these are also defined, but these actually have better definitions in the regs.
For the wildlife habitat, so we're saying you can't do any work within endangered species habitat.
Without,
Not that you can't do any work, that it's jurisdictional.
right,
Right. So that's above and beyond.
no, it's not, that's
Well-
straight out of the regs.
But it's in conjunction with. Okay, I gotta look. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I can pull them up.
You'll notice how these are all consecutive numbers, 56, 57, 58. That's because these are consecutive sections of the regs that are all the freshwater region things.
It's right here. That's where you pulled this from, right?
Yeah, that's where I started.
So,
There's no.
estimated habitats of rare wildlife. I don't see that
Yeah,
in
no.
here.
I don't see that.
I believe that came out of the act.
Okay.
Because we can only look at estimated habitats when there's wetlands. But when you put it like this, you're saying regardless of wetlands, we're talking about
It's
estimated habitats.
Almost like it's a resource area in
Yeah,
and of itself.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're creating rare estimated habitats of rare wildlife as a resource area itself, and not it when it's supposed to be only when you're altering a resource area.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Which I suppose.
Why you
could.
don't change it. You're better off with the way it is.
Well,
Well, I
I'll
don't
take
know
a
if we can go that far.
Right.
Yeah.
Do
I
we?
would-
I don't think we can
We're
go
not
that
sure that
far.
we can rate.
But it's a town bylaw.
Yeah, but it's still.
It's not like, the town bylaw is not rewriting the Conservation Commission. The town bylaw is only giving the Conservation Commission a tool, and that's one of the tools.
But it's creating a whole new jurisdictional area.
Do we have a lot of
But of course, that,
Oh.
natural heritage?
Not a
in town?
lot. We have some.
but that could be a sticky point. That's one of those,
I can't get on that right now for some reason.
I hate
All right.
to.
I left myself a note to look more into this specifically.
Okay.
Look, the way that the act is written is so bad, it's hard to tell what distributes, what associates with what. And so, if I misread that, that's fine. I was actually not terribly comfortable with putting this in, only because of I don't have a regulation reference for a definition.
Mm.
Where all of these others are clearly defined. And by the way, Jared, you'll notice I added a couple of goodies, like reservoir,
Mm-hmm.
spring. That's not in the regs, but it's
Yeah. Well, like, we don't need ocean,
yeah.
so that's not in there, which makes
And
sense.
you're also saying, as well as any buffer zones, you're making the buffer zone also a jurisdictional area.
so you don't even really have to
Right,
spell
because a
out
jurisdictional
reservoir.
area is an area where they can't do it without our approval.
But you don't have to spell out reservoir necessarily, because it's covered under pond or lake.
Yeah, but if you're
Is it-
saying, so, if you're limiting the buffer zone to as a jurisdictional area, and we are decreasing the amount of alteration you can do to a jurisdictional area,
Mm-hmm.
so you're making buffer zone like wetland. So if they're altering, even if it's just like putting a house, right now we have a 5,000 square foot cap. The way you have it worded right now is they would only be able to disturb 5,000 square feet of a buffer zone, and they'd have to replace it. You know what I'm saying?
No. I'm not defining a resource area. I'm defining what the
Okay.
spaces that are jurisdictional to
Okay.
Concom. That's all I'm defining. I'm not saying what they can do or not do to each of these. That's a different.
Well, but it's no person shall alter any jurisdictional area. So it's when you get down to the jurisdiction, make sure that wording you're using consistently, whether it's resource area or jurisdictional area. You know what I mean? Do you follow
Okay.
that? Do you follow that?
Yes.
It's just it's so in the definition part it works, but we just need to be careful in the way we word and use that definition in the jurisdiction.
Absolutely agreed.
Because
I believe that when we get
Yeah.
down to it, we're not going to use jurisdictional area a lot. We're going to use it very sparingly. Probably, maybe, only this one time. In the longer run, that's when we'll switch to resource areas. We're talking about what you're allowed to do exactly where. especially in the regulation, not so much in the law, but because, I mean, according to the Act, you're not allowed to fill anything you're not allowed to fill, for example, anything in the buffer zone without permission.
That is true, because it's under the jurisdiction of the Concom.
Yes.
But a buffer zone is
Has
not a resource
different,
area.
that's right,
right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So we will have a
Just have to make sure we're clear about
differentiation
that. Yeah.
between a jurisdictional area defined here and a resource area defined in the regs.
Yeah. I would, where you have this as jurisdictional area, you list all of that. Personally, I look at all of that as resource areas.
Did you have it like that before? I thought you had it. As
I used different words for, I think it was a wetland resource area covered.
Technically, they are jurisdictional,
Yes,
because resource areas are always jurisdictional.
that's right.
But if you flip it the other way around, not all jurisdictional areas are resource areas.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, maybe on this, to make it even more clear, we should, I don't want to repeat the resource area definition from the regulation, but maybe I will say compared to resource area definition in 310 CMR, whatever that.
Yeah, just references back.
Yeah, exactly.
My contact just flipped. It's fine. We're good. Back in business. Okay.
Right. So, again, jurisdictional area is all the area where Conservation Commission has to issue some form of permitting in
Got
order
it.
to allow the work to be done.
Yep.
So, maybe I should.
And he goes back.
I hate that, and I'm not going to leave that there, but I just want to leave a note to myself. Words we may want to add to clarify.
Yeah.
And also,
Or just, yeah, to keep in mind
and
as we
then
continue.
see also. 310 CMR 10 dot whatever the heck. Again, notes. You know, this is where we are. We'll fine tune some of this.
Okay. I got it.
And in fact, maybe we make it even simpler and we define the jurisdictional area as a resource area as defined in 310 CMR whatever, and the buffer zone.
Then you're making it a resource area.
No.
Oh, you're
The
saying
jurisdictional
Okay,
area
okay.
is
I get it.
all
I get it.
resource areas plus.
Okay.
That might
Maybe.
be-
Let
I
me
like
think
that.
about that. Let me
Right.
think about that.
That's how my brain looks at it.
Yeah.
That's how I've always have, is that
Yeah, but
those are
you're-
resource areas.
Yeah.
But you're looking at it from an engineer's
I
standpoint.
am.
No, but I
And the homeowner's going to have a harder time because he's going to have to go through all the crap I went
'Cause I-
through
True.
when figuring all this out.
Because I think the more consistency we can have between the bylaw and the act in terms of verbiage and
Mhm.
wording,
Yeah.
I think is good. And I agree. I think when I look at those, I see resource areas. At least when they're like laid out like that.
As the regulations define it, it's areas subject to protection.
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
is the phrase they use. And I was just curious. I looked up their definition of resource area. It's synonymous with area subject to protection. They don't define jurisdictional area
Right.
in the regs, which I find interesting because it is a term I often use. But you just
But
have to
the
be
correct
you gotta be
phrase
careful
according to
how you
regs is
use it.
area
Yeah.
subject to protection.
Yeah, yeah,
But you gotta be
And the
careful,
buffers.
this is
Yeah.
complicated,
yeah,
all right?
And we do
And
want
it's
to
a
make it as
bylaw.
simple as we can.
It's gotta be voted on.
yeah. Right.
So you gotta be careful, because, you know, when it gets too complicated, people don't read it and they don't want anything to do with it.
Mhm. It's true.
And that's, we've failed before in that, because of that.
Yep.
Outside of some of the things were kinda outlandish to begin with, but.
So that's as far as I've gotten. I just
Perfect.
dicked around with all this other stuff. I haven't touched anything else down
Oh,
below
God,
here
no,
that we
I
have a
don't
lot
I don't
of
want to
work
look at
do.
it. I don't want to look at it.
But I do want to say, I don't remember if I pointed this out, section 14.
Mhm.
This will be our statutory requirement to communicate with other boards. Planning, Board of Health,
And define how we communicate with them?
not,
Or
well,
just that we communicate with them?
it is,
Usually it's like the, these departments will have been notified of any applications.
of decisions.
Yeah.
and-
Okay.
Yeah. Which means that conservation agent plus or minus Tamika will have even more work to do.
Yay.
Alrighty, that's as far as I've gotten.
Perfect.
Is there any other business before the commission?
Is my only job to do the job description and update Tamika on this meeting?
I think so.
Okay. Thanks for clarification.
Glad to help with all the uncertainty I can yield.
Oh, God. I totally just forgot.
So we're waiting for a motion
Why,
to adjourn?
Why, yes, I am. And Skip's not here to have already issued it, so.
He'd be out the door
You
by
would have
now.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh.
Aye.
Roll call.
Dan's aye.
Telequel aye.
Chancelucci, aye.
Crane eye. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.